My name is Chef Jerry Levine, and I'm joined by Marcia, registered dietitian from Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital in Plymouth, Massachusetts. A special thanks goes out to PAC TV and the Center for Active Living for helping us bring this show to all of you.
Hello, everyone. Today we are making a cabbage snap pea salad. Nice and simple, very straightforward, but very flavorful. Okay, what do we have? We have a little bit of oil. We have a little bit of lemon juice. We have a little bit of honey. We have a little bit of kosher salt. Look at that. Parsley. Red cabbage sliced very thin. Okay, these are sugar snaps and they are raw, and I am not cooking them. These are going to be into the salad without any cooking. And you say, well, I've never had them that way. Well, it's time to learn something new. Anyway, okay. What we've done is we put all the solids into this bowl and we've mixed it, and you can see the sugar snaps and the parsley and the cabbage. And just remember, as I said, the cabbage is cut nice and thin, and it's got great flavor. Why am I using a red cabbage? I'll tell you why I'm using a red cabbage. It's because I like the contrast in the color between the red and the green, and it makes it look really attractive. Okay, next thing is I took and I put all of the liquid, including the salt, into this container here, and I did some swirling. And I applied my dessert, my dressing, not a dessert. And it's being mixed. And one thing I want to do before I serve it is I am a taster. The best way to cook is to taste. Cook, taste, and adjust if necessary. So what I want to do is I'm going to take my spoon here and I'm going to put it into the salad and I'm going to taste. Nice. Needs a tiny bit of salt. Tiny bit, and that is all we're going to do. So I move over here to my kosher salt jar, and I do, and look at how small the quantity that I'm putting in there. And that is it. That's all I'm going to do. I taste the lemon. I taste the oil. I taste the honey. I think there's a tiny bit of sweetness to it. I didn't want it overly sweet. So now I do the mixing. Notice what I'm doing. I'm moving the pan around. It helps me mix. We take our serving plate, or we could call it a salad bowl, and look at that. Look at the colors. Look at the shine on this. And a nice looking fork, and that is our sugar snap pea red cabbage salad, and it is really quite good. So enjoy, have a good time with this. It is really nice to make things like this, and I start getting salad crazy in about March. And I'm running down to the markets and I'm grabbing anything that is green. I love green because of its nutritional value. And I think that it is a wonderful thing to be able to get your nutrients from what you're eating and not just from supplemental pills. Okay. Bon appetit. Enjoy your salad.
This recipe, not only is it really simple to make, but it is definitely nutritious and it's definitely delicious. it only has 8 grams of fat, and that fat is all from poly and mono unsaturated sources, which are the good fats. Those are the fats we want to have more of. Very low in sodium, only 117 milligrams, which is very low. If you can eat a meal that is under 400, you're golden. Low in carbohydrate, if you are trying to manage blood sugars, pre-diabetes or diabetic, only 6.5 grams of carbohydrate, 1 gram of fiber because of those snap peas, and they were raw, so they have even more fiber. 2 grams of protein, phenomenal source of vitamin C, which is great for your immune system, your bones, your hair, your skin, and also B vitamins, green leafies, which are great for your brain and great for your heart. So that's what I'm going to focus on talking about more than anything. So I do have a little PowerPoint to bring up, and we're going to talk about heart-healthy eating. So one of the things that I want to start with is that fats are good for us. We're always talking about how bad they are, but I wanted to share with all of you that they are actually quite useful. So I want to share a few little tidbits about how fats are useful inside of our body and also within the food that we eat. So first up is in the body. They provide us with energy. About 80 to 90% of our resting body's energy and the energy used to fuel any muscular work. Fat helps us to fuel so that we've got the energy to do the things we want to do. They're also our chief form of stored energy. And this is where we need to be careful because we don't want to have too much stored energy, but we need to have some fat in our body to take care of us as an emergency reserve during times of illness or starvation. Fats also provide padding on our body to protect the organs inside of us from shock if you bump into something. They cushion the organs inside of our body. Fats also provide a layer of insulation. So there's a layer of fat under our skin, and this insulates us and helps to keep us warm in cold temperatures and actually helps us to cool down in hot temperatures. And another really, really important thing about fats are that they're a powerful part of our cell membranes. So we're made up of trillions of cells, and all of those cells have a coating, a covering, a membrane. We're primarily water, though. Blood is more water, and we're made of about 3/4 of our weight is typically water. But things that have that are fat soluble, like some vitamins and hormones, they need to get in and out of the cell. Fats help that to happen because of they're part of our cell membrane, a type of fat called a phospholipid. Fats in foods provide us with nutrients. They provide us with essential fatty acids that are great for our brains. Fats in food help us to metabolize fat-soluble vitamins, and those are A, D, E, and K. They help to carry these vitamins and phytochemicals, which give foods their rich color, the green in those snap peas, the red of a tomato, the blue of a blueberry. Some phytochemicals are fat-soluble, so we need fats in our diet to help with their absorption. I mentioned that fat is a concentrated source of energy, gives us about 9 calories per gram compared to carbohydrate and protein, which give us 4 calories. Fats provide a lot of flavor to foods and aromas. If a person doesn't have much of an appetite, sometimes adding some fat to the diet can stimulate the appetite. A little cream in a dish or butter or cream cheese, sometimes that can stimulate the appetite. You got to go easy with it if appetite is an issue. But for some people who are always hungry, fats can contribute to a feeling of fullness. They can help us stay full longer. And fats provide a lot of great texture to foods, helping fried foods be crispier, or a pie crust to be flaky, or a cookie to be soft. So fats do have some uses, but we want to have a diet that's moderate in fats. About 20 to 35% of our calories should come from fat. Saturated, the ones typically from animal products, and they're solid at room temperature. So if you forget everything, think about if a fat is solid at room temperature, it is saturated. We should limit these to about 5 to 6% of our calories, according to the American Heart Association. There's a type of fat called trans fat that was created to solidify oils into margarine or shortening. And these are called trans fats. And it's turned out they thought initially they'd be okay, but what we've learned is they're really not. They act like saturated fats in the body. So we should have as few trans fats as possible. And check your labels and see if there's any trans fat in them, and try to find foods that do not have trans fat. So the types of fat that are best for us are called unsaturated, and they include both poly and mono unsaturated fats. And they typically come from plants: olive oil, corn oil, vegetable oil, soybean oil, cottonseed oil, walnut oil, avocado oil. There's a plethora. Saturated fats are the ones we need to limit. And as I mentioned, they're typically from animal products, and they are solid at room temperature. So think of the bacon fat that you pour in the can, it gets solid on that counter. Butter stays solid on your counter. These are saturated fats. There is an exception though, and that's coconut oil. And if any of you have used coconut oil, it is super solid, even though it's not from an animal. It is a saturated fat. And those trans, we want to limit, and we typically get them from processed foods. So I wanted to show you this chart so you could get an idea of how fats are. Most fats will contain a bit of each type, poly, mono, and saturated. But these maroon colors, these are the saturated fats. And look at coconut oil. It's not an oil at all when it's in that container. It does have a smidgen of mono and even less than a smidgen of poly. It is primarily saturated. More than butter, beef fat, palm oil, another non-animal product that is rich in saturated fat, and pork fat or lard. So these ones we want to limit. It's okay to have a little bit, but we want to limit them. What we want to have more of is these monounsaturated fats like olive oil, canola oil, and peanut oil, and the vegetable oils, which are rich in polyunsaturated fats. Safflower, sunflower, corn, soybean, walnut, cottonseed, and there's more. I just couldn't fit everything on the slide. So have less of the saturated. So saturated fats are these maroon colors. What we want to have more of are the monos and the polys. Some of the names of the saturated fats you might be familiar with are bacon, butter, cheese, milk chocolate more so than the dark chocolate, coconut, half and half, cream cheese, animal meats, especially if they have fat around those edges, whole milk products, and those oils of coconut and palm, shortening and sour cream. You can get lighter versions of these, but use these prudently. Some of the places we get trans fats are typically from commercially made products, snacks, baked goods, fried foods. Best thing to look for on the label is partially hydrogenated oil. So the reason why it's important to avoid these to avoid the saturated fats is because they appear to be linked with the development of cardiovascular disease. And these are diseases of our heart and our blood vessels. a lot of research indicates that high intakes of saturated fats and trans fats can lead to a condition called atherosclerosis. The intake of refined carbohydrates is also linked. And at one time they thought heart disease was a man's disease, but it is as much of a woman's disease as a man's disease. So this condition called atherosclerosis, another word for it is hardening of the arteries. Everybody's got some signs of it, and it results in plaque formation. I'm going to show you a picture in a moment. But with this plaque formation, it damages the vessels that feed our heart, that provide oxygen and blood to the parts of our heart that need it. And this results from an immune system response that triggers inflammation. Our body knows it doesn't belong there. So our immune system kicks in and sends in all sorts of white blood cells, including macrophages, that try to grab that fat that's being deposited away. But what happens is they mineralize instead and become hard plaques. And this is what it can look like. It typically happens in these like Y points. So this orangey yellow part is plaque. So if it continues to progress, you can see how narrowed this artery becomes. And it also becomes very hard. It should be pliable, but these plaques make it hard, hence that term, hardening of the arteries. So blood's got to flow through this artery to feed the heart, but your heart's going to have to work harder to pump blood through it because it is more narrowed. Limiting saturated fats and trans fats is indicated as a strategy to reduce this. In addition to not smoking, eating healthy, getting adequate sleep, and a high fiber diet. So how can we lower the cholesterol in our blood and reduce this plaque? So this plaque results from something called LDL, which is one of the types of cholesterol that get measured during a lipid profile. Saturated fats and trans fats raise LDL. LDL carries this fat to those vessels, more so than the cholesterol in food. So if you're looking at labels, I want you to look at saturated fat levels more so than cholesterol levels. The dietary cholesterol makes a very small contribution to elevated LDL, which can result in more of those fat deposits. So bottom line is less saturated fat, less trans fat, more polyunsaturated fats and monounsaturated fats. So what are some things you can do? Instead of using regular margarine or butter, maybe drizzle some olive oil in on a vegetable, make things with olive oil, saute your foods in a canola oil, try to use more vegetable oils and olive oils in your dressings versus a cream-based dressing. Solid fats like bacon, bacon fat, butter, maybe try some herbs, some lemons, and you noticed in this recipe, it had several of these. Wine can also be added in broth. Use whole grain croutons or maybe some nuts in a salad versus regular croutons or bacon bits. For your dairies, try to use fat-free or part skim versions, and try to choose light ice creams and frozen yogurts without fat, or maybe some sherbet instead of ice cream. I mean, this is an all the time thing. It's okay to have your treats. Instead of high-fat cold cuts, try to choose some lower-fat, leaner meats, lean turkey or chicken, some tuna fish, salmon. Canadian bacon is going to be less fat than a breakfast sausage or bacon. And try to limit your red meats to once or twice a month. Add in more turkey, more fish, more chicken, and more plant-based proteins like tofu. Do not eat the skin on your chicken or turkey, and maybe have plain fish versus a fried fish. Snacks, go towards whole grains. Try some fruit for dessert instead of cakes all the time. Mac and cheese can be substituted with a spaghetti with a tomato-based sauce. If you like ramen noodles, try some soba noodles. They will have a little bit less fat. And try to look at labels and get as little saturated fat as possible if you're using.
Marcia, you talked about saturated fat in the form of cheese.
Mhm.
And I was always under the impression that things like cottage cheese, particularly low-fat cottage cheese, were good for you.
And they are, you're absolutely right.
So cheese, and I also thought hard cheeses were healthy.
Good. You're absolutely right. The hard cheeses like a Parmesan, Romano, they have less fat. And for cottage cheese or yogurt or any cheeses, if you can try a lower fat version or monitor the quantity, that's probably the bottom line. If you're a cheese lover and you want to sit down and have a half a block, get the light version so that you can keep that saturated fat. But cheese is good for you. And that's why with saturated fat, it's not a don't eat any of it, it's a moderate it. Moderate it more than anything.
Thank you, Marcia.
You are welcome. Any other questions? Or I can ask Jerry a stump the chef question.
Well, why don't we let Jerry ask you a something nutritionist question?
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay. All right, here it goes. Why have we been told through the popular press that coconut fats coconut oil is healthy for us? And it's really being pushed.
It really is, and yeah, it's great marketing on the coconut oil marketers. And so these types of fats are triglycerides, and they have a triglyceride is a glycerol backbone with 3 fatty acid chains. And those chains have bonds. A saturated fat, all of the bonds are solid. They're all filled. They're saturated. Unsaturated, there's a bond that's not filled. So that's why it makes them react differently. There's some different types of fatty acids within coconut oil that is different than a butter, which is a saturated fat, but it's not enough to make that much of a difference if you're using a lot of coconut oil. A little bit does add some great flavor to foods, but I'm watching people put it in their smoothies, put it in their foods, everything. And it is a saturated fat, so it's got to be limited like other saturated fats. It's not safe or healthy in large quantities. I hope I did that well. All right, so Jerry, now you're on. So this is more of a curiosity because today is St. Patrick's Day. We're all Irish today.
Yeah.
So Jerry, red or gray corned beef?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Red or gray corned beef?
Hold on, I'm trying to turn my phone off here. Okay, ask me again.
Should I eat red corned beef or gray corned beef?
Okay, gray corned beef is a natural corned beef, and it is. And this is more of a nutritional thing, but I'm going to give you an answer anyway. The red corned beef tends to have nitrates in it, and it is less healthy than the gray corned beef. So the original corned beef was gray, and I would suggest when I buy corned beef, I don't buy red, I buy gray.
I guess it's the New England corned beef too. They call that one as the more natural choice for us New Englanders.
Did I get it right?
You did. You did. Yeah, the red has nitrites in it, and that's what makes it red. But it is processed, so why not choose something that's not as processed? And the gray will have much less salt in it than the red. And a lot of people feel it tastes sweeter and it tastes more tender. It looks different, though. I think sometimes people choose the red because they're used to that red look or whatever. But I do have a gray tip. So I've learned that the tip is the best part of the corned beef, or the brisket, I guess it would be.
That's right.
All right, so it has been wonderful to have all of you here with us today. We'd like to thank all of you because without you, Delicious and Nutritious would not happen. Also, a great shout out to Hack TV for producing, Plymouth Center for Active Living for promoting, definitely Jerry for being with us every month and sharing these wonderful recipes, and BID-Plymouth, where I'm from. We wish you all happy eating and a great day.
Enjoy Delicious and Nutritious.